Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's your boy Freeze with the weekly live stream. And today, as you probably could tell from the thumbnail, we're going to be talking about the next endurance bot. So it's going to be sideways for both factions. A little bit of small differences there, but we're going to talk about it. And yeah, thanks for the help, Vic Ching. So I forgot, I got two mute buttons. I got one actually on the studio software, and I got one that's actually right here on my chest. So I had the one on my chest still activated. So, but anyway, we're gonna talk about that, and I want to talk about a particular style of base that I still see people struggling with. So I'm gonna walk through just some of my strategies for that, and kind of give a little bit of advice for players that might be struggling in that area. But all in all, should be pretty chill. And before we get into any of that, let's get into this week's newsletter. And the newsletter is called, the event is called Sideways Move. I could have kept that one for a week when we actually had Sideways coming out. But this weekend we got an Alliance Totalizer. Total is going to be 600k points at 120 prestiges. Some of the stuff you'll get: 3,000 4-star shards, 9,000 3-star shards, 60k premium shards, 120k spark, and then they got 120 Cyber Bowl chests containing a chance at spark, prime shards, 5-star shards, and BBE. So, event is going to take some effort. Not a whole lot of effort, but some effort. Alright, so here's your battle zones. And for game updates and information, like we've been talking about, Sideways is coming to the game. You know, they got them for both factions. Range special. I know we talked a little bit about what I expected to happen last week. Some of it came to fruition. I'll talk about the overall process of what I'm looking at from my perspective in playtest. But so we'll come back to that. You got the next Cyberpass skins loaded up. Pretty cool. They got a Shockwave, and it looks like that's Chromia there. Alright, so Leader Council. And they said they're leveling up the Leader Council into the Player Council. Leader Council's been a success and getting a lot of feedback. And I know my commander's in there, and he's been, kind of letting us know certain things of how things have been going. And it's been a really good source of feedback. So really thankful that they're able to do that. But they're looking for more players to put into the room. So I know our alliance lead, our family lead, was asking if more people want to go in, and a couple of really good players responded too. So hopefully that'll help with some feedback for stuff. There's going to be some more reshuffling and playtest. So keep your eyes out for that. So if you want to get in there and apply, that time is coming up within the next month. Alright, so it says here with Discord updates, it says by the team this goes out to many folks to receive our newsletter. A new area of the Discord will have open called war discussions. Oh, by the time this comes out, I'm assuming that's supposed to say. They've been looking to expand the Discord and have more areas of conversation, like an off-topic area or a place to talk about just film, maybe even a Bayverse conversation or two. Let me know how that goes. And came across nowhere where you can openly talk about wars past and present. Strategy, ask for help on squads. This new area will be shaped to allow that to happen. So that's good, man, because I don't think that people talk about, the game's got wars in its name. I think that, honestly, a lot of people don't hit wars as hard as they used to. I mean, uh, basically just because of the rewards that you get. When I was a newer player, you needed to have that those wars, and those war wins is your primary source of spark, and it made things go slower. Um, but it's just like now that spark is in every single event, people are less likely to hit the wars. And I think at the end of the day, we got to figure that out. I'm not saying take them out of the events, but you got to figure something out to make them some incentive. But actually being good at wars, that does help with that incentive piece. So I'm glad to see that coming. And they said that for now, it's going to start with Prime and Cybertron leagues with the intent to add more channels as we go on. So, yeah, and then there's going to be a lounge too. All right, the weekend bundles. You got the best of 2025 bundle debuts with the hottest bots of the past year. So, Wing Saber and Dreadwing, Gears and Quake, Armada Scavenger and Armada Wheeljack, and then Overload and Demolisher are going to be going in there. So they'll have character crystals, G1 chips, character shards, and spark. You're going to have full contact combat bundles. Have the, and it says have the gear you need to hit the battlefield. So character chips for Styler and Sunbeam, Peacemaker and Tip Top, Sky Boom, Armada, Star Saber or Dark Saber, the Forge of Solus Prime, SB Optimus and SB Megatron. So that's pretty solid. We got some good ones in there. And then 4-star rating and Dino King bundles are selling there up to 60% off. So that is not bad. Yeah, especially as we get ready to go into the 5-star, might be a good opportunity for some players who didn't catch up with the 4-star to go ahead and catch up. And yeah. And then let's see, Crystal Shop, small scale combatants. Okay, so are back for the best battle support. So talking about 4-star non-dupe combat chip, 100 5-star combat shards, so 9.5% chance there. 2 to 20 premium combat chips, 50% chance, and then 40% chance at 4,000 to 20,000 combat spark. So not bad. Uh, in the saga schedule, and we've been talking about that a little bit. Obviously, this one's the Cyber Bowl event coming up this weekend, and then going into the endurance next weekend for Sideways, who we'll talk about a bit. Then it'll be an easier fuel up event that'll be individual endurance for 5-star rating and Dino King combiners. That would probably be the one that I actually want to complete. And then typically what happens around that week is they wind up selling a couple of the pieces too. So I have to see how that goes. I'll probably just wait it out though, because that'll be my third and fourth piece for rating and Dino King. Then we'll have an Alliance Prestige, uh, max 2 mil, and then we will have the Prime event. So a lot going on right now, and then but that's what we got coming up forward as far as the saga goes. And then we got the joke of the week. Did you know I ain't doing all them zeros, but I am 0.0001% chance of witnessing a certain transformer in the Alliance HQ. Okay, well, oh, it's just a did you know, eh? Man, got them in the chat, man. Where the joke at for the week? The dad joke. All right, check out all your content creators, your official ones, myself, Soldier, Sunstreak Awaza, and CF, who had a really good stream on Saturday. I got there just in time to check that out and check out all your unofficial content creators as well. And that's what we got for the news this week. So let's see what we got going on in the chat. All right, I'm gonna try to start where I think we started at, because we had a little bit of spam going on in the chat earlier. Honestly, I don't know why people do stuff like that, man. Like, when you sit up there and you talk to folks, You know, be nice to folks even when some other people aren't. And then 47 messages of spam. Nah, man, like just don't do that, man. But even still, Professional Husky was first in the chat. You know, had to do a temporary mute because of all the spam, followed by Twilight Tier, one of my good friends and members as well, fellow content creator as well. Thanks for joining. Let's see. Spam, spam, spam. And then we got. All right, I'm trying to look in between all of that. All right, we got Hamburger. Thanks for joining us again, buddy. Had to dig in there and like actually find your name between all the silly stuff. We got Grim Studios with us again, one of my good friends. Uh, thanks for joining. We got the homie Chris Harmon with us again, one of my moderators and members, good friend as well. And he reminds everybody to like and subscribe. Appreciate you, Brody, and thanks for joining. We got another moderator and good friend and member, Foxter Bomb, in here with us again. Thanks for joining, Foggy. We got the homie Predator King 19 with us again, saying what's up, everyone, and also saying let's hope they realize we want G1 bots and give us more. Yeah, you know, and the Seacons. Yeah, mentioned the real Seacons as well. Um, but yeah, I personally I think they'll get to all of that stuff at some point. Um, who knows? I just always am curious what's going to come out when it does, and then try to do everything we can to make the bots good, which we'll talk about here in a little bit with Sideways. All right, let's see. We got the homie Tracks, one of my good friends and members as well. When we first started, I had actually started the stream and I was watching the end of Wazas and I was talking with Tracks in there, so he was in two streams at once. But I appreciate the support and thanks for joining. All right, we got DJ DC in here with us again. Thanks for joining. And he says, "Hey, all in listening. Want to see if the new bot is worth it or a waste of time." So we will talk about that here shortly after we get everyone introduced. All right, we got Callum, good friend as well, one of the community managers from Yoda One. Thanks for joining, buddy. And we got Vic Ching in here with us again. Thanks for joining, Vic. We got Timothy, aka Soundblast 51. Thanks for joining. And we got the homie Blade 19 with us again, one of my good friends and members as well. Thanks for joining. Yo, y'all still on that? It's like, man, it was a conversation. I'll call it, I'll say that to be nice. A conversation that was going on between uh, Trax and Callum on Waza's stream that turned into this one. That's hilarious. Speaking of the devil, Sunstreaker Waza's in there. Thanks for joining, buddy. Good friend, fellow content creators. I saw most of you guys over on his stream before mine, so thanks for joining, brother. And thanks for the compliment. He says he loves the thumbnail. Now, man, like I said, I've been working a lot with this AI stuff that generates a lot of the thumbnails, and I was like, man, you know, the first one I made, I actually made a different thumbnail, and I showed it to a couple of other friends and when I had put it up there, and this was like from last week's version when we only had a triangle, and I was like, "Yeah, man," I was joking around, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna put them in a garbage can, and maybe make that the thumbnail." But I had a question mark on it, and they was like, "Well, why are you questioning it?" you know, going back to last week, they was like, "Yeah, this bought some butt," so it was really hilarious. But I kept that part of it, and then when they reworked it, put the Cup 2.0 part up there. So I just made that decision, like, honestly, right before I came home from work. So I appreciate the compliment, though, and welcome. Vic Ching says looking at my cap, any thoughts of doing some merchants for TFEW? Um, oh, so you was talking about Callum respond says looking at hoodies, that'll be cool. Waza said expensive hoodies. See some comments in there about Bayverse chat. Nah, cause here's my thing, and when they first started, I didn't. I like the movies good enough, but they just seemed like they just gradually got worse over time. So I was just like, that's why I was like, good luck with that, because most Transformers heads just don't really like those that much. But it'll be interesting. I'll join the chat just to see if it's on fire on day one. The homie CF, fellow content creator, good friend, one of my members as well. Thanks for joining, buddy. We got my good friend and fellow teammate Tarn from the Horde. Thanks for joining. And he actually made a comment, and I said I didn't have time to jump into the conversation you guys were having yesterday, but basically there was a conversation going on, and Tarn saying war is fun and the focus of the game, but it's not how Yodo gets paid. They get paid for the grind of building bots to be used in war, and I think that's the point. And so, like for me, when I'm looking at new bots, and and Waza says it all the time on his stream, new content being better than old content, which I do believe that to an extent. Like, I don't think that every bot's going to be good, and I'm not, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I'm not anti having 2.0 bots as long as stuff keeps up with the power creep. So, like, when I go test, my first thing that I'm thinking about is balance. Like, where does this fit into the game now and potentially in the future? And that's caused me not to go for some bots at times like that. But I do realize at the same time there's only 8 that'll go into a war team. Usually for me, might be a total of 15 that I might use tops in the entire game, and that's just because situations come up. So I don't believe in having a second war team and stuff. Not enough power cores and stuff like that. Um, and I say all of that because the grind is great. The grind is gonna make some money. Give us something. We gotta have stuff that's worth grinding for. You know, um, and that's kind of the part that hasn't been quite as strong lately. So, ooh. All right, who else we got in here? We got Deshaun joining us. Thanks for joining, Deshaun. And I think I got everybody. If not, feel free to tag me. Love you. Give everybody shout outs. I appreciate everybody for being here. To be honest, I don't want to leave anybody out. So we got us a new endurance bot coming here next week. I can finally show him off because we do have him in playtest now. We'll take a look at his artwork first, and I only say that because one of the first things that came up was that I know some of the testers were a little disappointed with the artwork, and just they were comparing them to the toys and stuff, and said some of the stuff was just off at the wrong angle and stuff like that. And but overall, I mean, I'm not an artsy guy, artistic person, but um, it looks okay. I ain't got a problem with it. For some of you guys that are real big into collecting toys, which I have, like little stuff that my kids bought me. I ain't got like stuff that I had like I had like as a kid. But we got Sideways coming to the game. And we're gonna have to take a look at what this guy actually does. There's gonna be an Autobot version and a Decepticon version, so both of them are gonna be named sideways. And I wanna show what he does. And this is where we're at currently. I haven't carried him to ability 11 yet because I always want to be able to show that on the stream. But I did get to test him quite a bit over this week, and there've been some changes, so I can appreciate that the team has been making changes because last week, like I told you guys, we just had a triangle. Well, no, wait a minute. Nah, I think I might have been telling people that in personal conversation because we had them for the first time on Friday, and I had streamed on Thursday, but I knew uh, somewhat what was going to be going on, so it's pretty close to what I was saying. He's got a teleport ability. It's called Transphase. It's trying to keep it close to the lore, and so I got him at level 10. It says teleport, placing a swarm of nanites at the destination that deals 496 cryo damage per second. So that's going to be a total of 4,466, and it'll cause -60 attack and move speed to enemies for 9 seconds. So the attack and move speed thing is cool. Let's see what the ability 11 does. So, and I already knew what it did, but so you guys can see it. So you'll gain 10 seconds of disable immunity. Keep in mind, I'm on my playtest account because people will be like, why do you have so many upgrade items or anything else up there, coins and all that stuff? I'm on a playtest server, so I do want to give that warning. So we'll go ahead and upgrade them so we can see it all working together. But before I get into all that, before I start showing that off, I do want to take a look at some of the different iterations that we've had um, during playtests. So we've had three or at least three that I'm aware of. So this is where we started. We started out with, and the first version that had, the ability, and then I just had it at level 1. I didn't take it all the way up, but it was like choose an enemy and teleport near them. Place a pile of nanites at the destination. It deals, X damage for a total of X damage. Every second, the enemies in contact dealt, less DPS, and it still went up to like 9 seconds. But when you looked at the cost of this thing, and this is kind of what I was saying last week, when you look at the cost that they had up there at 7 plus 2 at the time, like it's now 3 plus 3. It kind of, when I see that, it kind of signifies in my brain that this is something that we're kind of scared to build. We still don't have, when you talk about teleporting, you naturally think about Cup and Dead End. And this is one that I think has been getting put off of being a 5-star for years. You can't avoid it because on the Decepticon end, it's a combiner piece. So eventually you're going to have to make it. And it's had a couple of minor nerfs over the years. But like recently, more so. And I think it's because a lot of players, what they use it for, I know a lot of guys in my alliance, they use it for sack strategy, when you're talking about dead end and cup. So because of that, you know, I think that you're kind of handling, team kind of handled a pot like this with kid gloves. Now, I will say, when I started talking to other playtesters, they were like, hey, we want to keep this really lore accurate. So by default, that's going to mean it's going to be some level of teleportation and stuff like that. So they stuck it in there is that it had to attach itself to a target, and the range is really small. So I didn't really get to show it because we didn't have the bot itself. We had a triangle. Um, we didn't have all the graphics yet. Cool. So they get the graphics set. Second version comes out, and they say this time in placing a swarm of nanites at the destination deals. Now I got them actually leveled up, and deals 471 cryo. That's 4,243 total damage, and then it had minus 60% attack and move speed on enemies for 9 seconds, but they had it at 4+3. So today, the team actually decided to change it to 3+3. You know, a lot of players felt like that would be more of an appropriate cost, but we got to get into the battlefield and see what it actually does. I do want to check the comments real quick. Going back into what it looks like, Twilight Tear says it's basically a robot on wheels. Not much to expect. Agreed. And so Tarn asked if the Autobot and the Decepticon versions had different heads. So I don't actually have the Autobot version on here, and I probably should have been paying attention when I was looking at. Well, here's the thing: they had the artwork in the newsletter. Like, how did it look on there? 'Cause they had both of them up there. So yeah, it looks like they got the different heads on that artwork. So you know, I think they would, because we just got a 5-star version of our faction in playtest. All right, let's see. Yeah, Blade 19 says it looks like a shrunken head when it's in bike transformation. DC says sounds a bit like a cross between Dead End and Waspinator. Deshaun says it's their son. uh, uh, uh. So Big Blake, one of my good friends, moderator as well, says notice how he doesn't have the hack community that Dead End does too. So that's one of the things we're going to do some comparisons here in a little bit because, um, you know, I don't think that when they're trying to go do bots that have similar abilities, they don't want to make them too close to the same. So a lot of that stuff it kind of took out of the equation. For example, as a matter of fact, let's bring them up on the screen so we can see how different they actually are. And I don't think I got them maxed out on test like I do on the real server, but you can still kind of yeah. I didn't, he got reverted back to the way I had him like 2 years ago. But you know, so you don't have the damage reduction shield. You don't have a lot of this stuff. That didn't, and you know, it makes me wonder, especially at the cost they started out with when they started out with you know, when they started out originally at like 7+2, to me it just looks like it's kind of scared that it's going to be more overpowered. Like if you got one bot like Dead End and Cup that you're already kind of worried about, now what if you put two of them up there? And I think that that turned into just a lot of the different things that we had going, so that we'll talk about here in a bit. So we got some people already coming up with ideas. Twilight Tears um, talking about combining with an integrity counterpunch. Well, we'll see how that's gonna go. Uh, so Timothy asked, "Did Sideways gonna have a G1 core?" Well, he does, and we'll talk about that. You know, I see that. So I like Tia answered him. Yeah, Big Blade says so. A sack cryo damage. I mean, or a hit and run, essentially. Callum asked if he wanted me to send. Yeah, if you don't mind sending me the alt faction, that'll be cool. But cool. So I think let's give it a spin. Let's go in there. We'll have to go to the large screen for that, and let's give Sideways uh, a spin on the actual battlefield. So let's see. And I just want to kind of just take a look at just what he does. We'll look at the ability and stuff like that. So I'll take him down in the zone 14, just so we can have a look at just what he looks like, and then we'll try to put him in with some war teams and stuff like that. See how that shakes out. Alright, so I am going to put him here in this corner. And right now I don't have anything on him. That's just his... Alright, so that'll be cool, because I have a couple of minions down here. So, ooh, I did not mean to bring out another bot. So one thing that I'm concerned about here is the range, only because you do need a target. So the range got a little bit better than it looked like it was when we first got him, but he does need a target. So he's going to teleport there, and you know they gave you a pretty decent sized area for the ability itself. But with the damage that the nanites does, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I do like the area that we got there for the cryo. I do like that, and I'm gonna run it a couple more times. I do like that part, but and we're gonna take a look at this tooltip again, because even though it's AOE, it's not a ton of damage. All right, so you just sent me, Callum just sent me sideways. Appreciate you, Brody. So we can actually look at that as well. So yeah, you can see it's, you know, they got it a little bit different for the Autobot version. You know, that's the biggest thing is, you know, try to keep it accurate with the, you know, the different heads and everything. For those who were curious. But all right, I do want to go look at this tooltip again before we go into the next set of tests. So now at ability 11, one thing I didn't go back and look at is the cryo damage. So now it went up to 513. So over the course of 10 seconds, and now you get a total of 5,133. So, and then, you know, with the ability 11, you get the disable immunity, so you're not going to be able to get stunned. And hey, so I saw somebody, I didn't know what y'all were talking about. He said he dropped a joke in my chat. I apologize. If I can find it, I will go back and look later on. Yeah, I might have just been reading through everything too fast. So here's the thing, and I'm going to go through a couple of things the other testers are talking about and some of the things I was talking about. So a lot of times what people like to use a teleporting bot for is to kind of jump them up, either, well, one or two things. Get them directly to the HQ, or primarily for SAC. Now, you can see that I'm trying to press here on the outside. He needs a target, and so when I look at something that needs a target, now you're trying to get him out as far as you can, and I'm just waiting for him to walk up. You know, this is typically the area that's going to have all of your mines and stuff like that. Even now, I'm still having a hard time trying to get him until this is fully in that circle to try to get him up and up the battlefield. Still having a hard time getting them up there because it's still like one corner up there. And so this is where the problem is. When you have a target, these are the the kind of issues that you had to deal with, especially at this range. And now Triptychon's probably going to destroy his target. All right, so now I'm gone. Trying to go pop the upper outpost. 2 abilities used. And don't get me wrong, the AoE is cool, but the AoE, understandably so, it's a little bit lower of a it's at a little bit lower of a damage point. Now keep in mind, I'm only in zone 14 right now. So here you got dead end, cup for you Autobots. But he can go anywhere, so you can get good path and put him in the open space. Right now he's chasing the bots up there at the top of the screen. But you just got freedom of movement that you just don't have with this new bot sideways. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. I'm glad that they did bring the price down, twice. But all right, so with all that said, let's go add his G1. See what his G1 looks like, since we hadn't talked about that yet. Yeah, Berserk DC says they aren't good with the outer line targeting circle. Sometimes just doesn't work. Agreed. I'm always gonna try to push the boundary as hard as I can, but if I push them shorter than that, then I would have popped the front outpost and stuff like that. So it just becomes, honestly, I wanted it to look like exactly how I feel about it. It looks like it becomes like a complete pain. So um, that's just the reality of it for me. All right, so we got sideways G1. So let's take a look at that. So it says gain plus 15.5% ability damage. So this is something G1s I find when you are working with a special class bot, you have a tendency to need the G1 a little bit more because, you can't go over here and use um, a class specific core or anything like that. So the G1s become your way of boosting ability damage and, other little nuances that you don't have to worry about when you get a different class. So that 15.5% ability damage, I do want to see how that looks while I'm running this on the stream. I did play with it some earlier, but it wasn't my total focal point. Um, and then also on ability use, gain a plus 1% health until the nanites disappear. So now you're trying to address the health concerns that we have for this dude. So I'm going to try that. And I also want to go back and look at his base. So his base damage is 721. Now I got him at level 70. I didn't rank him at all. I usually don't rank when I go into testing, because I want to see if the bot's going to be good standalone without any of his bells and whistles. But you got the health at 27.4k, almost 27.5. So even though the cryo is going to slow down the attack and move speed around that area, there's still going to be some ranged attackers that are going to come in there. He does have a disable immunity, so that helps. And I believe, let me make sure I got this right before I speak out of turn, but they also said he was missing the effect that bots such as Cup, Blur, and Lightspeed all have, which prevents their abilities from triggering T-lock mines mid-rush. So you're talking about your bots like, are you talking about like your mines, your MSMs? Give me a second. All right, so we'll take a look at that. See how he looks with the G1. I'll still keep it low though. I'll keep it around the zone 14 area, just so we can see. I always like to try to see how they just look in gameplay and then actually put them in the harder gameplay. And I see the homie King Grimlock in there. Now this one, of course, is a base with the HQ in the front. But I just want to see what this does. And it's just so hard to get him to reach anything that's like not like right there in attacking range. That's the hard part for me. But you can see him getting a little bit of a bump in health there if you watch his health meter while the nanites are still up. So a little bit for survivability. And I was looking at the comments. Um, Blade 19 says 1% health. Why even bother putting that in? Well, it's kind of like one of those things where it's just giving it, it's going to give it that health bump while that area of effect is still going on. So it winds up being decent in that regard. But as King Grimlock said in the comment before that, but health isn't the problem. It's a band-aid. The problem is utility, which I agree with. I'm gonna actually, there's some good comments in here. I'm gonna stop and look at comments once again. So Big Blade says the problem is keeping Sideways alive. Like, how do you use him aside from teleporting him to his death? Isn't his lore using his trance phase to avoid death? Yes, absolutely. And I think that when we add targets to the stuff now, I do understand trying to keep balance in the game. And I genuinely think that this has to do because we already had free casting ability for Cup and Dead End, but this targeting thing without him being having more range or whatever, I'm just not sure, man. King Grimlock says too much going on screen to babysit a bot. Agreed. Berserk DC actually got a he got a comment that this is what actually made me stop to go back to the comment section again when I saw this, and I really appreciate that. And I totally agree. He says if you need the G1 for a bot to be good, is it a bad bot? Listen, hit the nail on the head. Now, and don't get me wrong, special classes I feel like, and to a certain extent, like I said earlier, are gonna need G1s a little bit more. But I don't even want to say need the G1s. It makes them better. But in this case, it's kind of like you need the G1. And I don't like that. I think that a bot, if you go in there and you go pay the money for a bot in the event, I mean, unless they were going to start putting the G1s as part of the prizes in the actual event for those to complete, then I would feel differently. Then that would probably be okay. But most of the time, you got to go in there and try to buy this stuff, or you got to try to hunt that particular G1 down. So I don't like that, you know. So Trax made a point. He says throw Nightstick on him and he might be alright. So we can do that. Here's the problem. When I look at a bot and that bot has 720 28 damage points, is that something that I really want to do? So for Fracas and Nightstick, I like to put on higher damage bots. But yeah, let's see. Because I didn't put a combat on them. And I'm really going through this step by step, like how my playtest process actually went. So now, okay, yeah, you got them up to about 1,000, so you can make the argument for it. But this time, because we've been going in lower levels, I'm actually going to take them up. So we'll take them, you know, for the sake of time, we'll take them in the prime zone. and just to see how that works. Because at some point you got to start looking at, can you use this guy on your war team or not? So here we got a couple of outposts in the back. I'm gonna try to see if I can just get those back outposts popped. So now he's gonna path inwards. It's still out of range from anywhere where I could jump to anything decent. Alright, so there goes my first teleport. Second one. Now I'm gonna need a third one if I want to get this other one on the top. It's just not efficient enough. And then he's gone. So I actually want to try that against. I want to try it against. And I actually add it. I just put it in one of the spots on my war team, and I'll try against one of the playtester bases because I want to see what that looks like. But ultimately, it's just so much going on with this bot. And I said it on Waza's in the comments on his stream. You know, it usually takes me a lot to just be like a bot's not good. Now, I definitely gave a lot of feedback about the first version. First version just flat out wasn't good. And now, you know, they added a little bit more to it, took the cost down as they should, but it's just like, you know, it's not going to be this Cup 2.0. Like, and yesterday when I woke up and I was actually talking with CF, and I was like, okay, this is closer to a Cup 2.0. But then, you know, I guess I just got a lucky pull where I just tried it once or twice because I was still at work, and I said I was gonna try it later on, in the evening. And I tried it that evening. I said, man, this is some butt. Like, I don't like this at all. And that's still kind of how I'm feeling. Um, Unfortunately, you know, and I applaud the attempt to try to keep everything lore accurate. I saw a couple of other good ideas out there in playtest in regards to things we could try to do with it. But I think it did get a little bit off focus because a lot of folks was just like, well, looking at, well, what can I do in the event with it? Man, look, the event should be supporting your wars, in my opinion, or something you want to do with the bot. Like, I'm not one, you know, and I'm not saying anything negative against collectors, but I'm not gonna sit up there and push hard for something that I'm not gonna use. So now here in this case, you know, I'm still out here reaching. And so as long as the nanites are going, so now, so I don't have any like hack immunity or anything. So I'm gonna try to go to the outside here, get the, yeah, and it's just, and he's gone. So it makes me, I can't really find the actual purpose for them. I've been testing it probably a little bit harder than I have some of the other content that we've had, because for the most part, especially with like combat bots and stuff, for the most part, they've been coming out pretty good. Um, this, you know, I just can't really find, like King Grimlock said earlier, the utility in this, and I just don't see it. So looking at the comments, Foxer Bomb says if you won't be Prime War worthy, then it's a waste of time. Let's see. Yeah, no, I mean, and I think, you know, I honestly don't always use war worthy, that term, a lot, because what a lot of people say when they mean that is like, hey, this is one of the top 8 in the game or something like that. You know, can it be viable in war? Can I find a purpose, even if it's not the best purpose? If I can find a purpose for something, then yeah. So in that sense, I'll say war worthy. And you're right. Um, you know, if we just, you know, and there's gonna be some bots that are fun. There's some bots that I wouldn't use in war that are fun, but like this doesn't even scratch that. So for me, so Big Blade says, does that mean all bots need a prime core to be extremely good? No. Um, you know, I use quite a bit of prime cores and stuff like that, but you know, there's been times where I would use. There's been bots I use like a basic attack core on, or you know, a basic core. So you know, they just need to enhance what they do. But prime core is not always necessary nor a G1. So Waza says, why couldn't they just have them teleport Nano somewhere and give them cryo? Anything but this. That I would be okay with. That'd be cool. But then, so the conversation then comes into playtest. And I'll share this with you all. There was one comment about, well, in the lore he teleports, so we don't need him teleporting anything because we had actually come up. Well, I didn't come up with the idea. We had a playtester that came up with an idea, and he said, "Well, why don't we have him so he can teleport bots to him?" And so we started coming up with these strategies to say say you wanted to use a bot on the opposite side of the battlefield to start off some pathing and then teleport them back. That'd be great. Or if a bot start wandering off and you had bad pathing, you could get them back with the team. But he was like, no, no, no. So, and you know, a couple other people commented, but they was like, no, well, you know, to keep it lore accurate, he has to teleport. And so I was just like, look, man, we're on the verge of having a really bad bot. This was a couple of days ago, so the bot was much worse than he is now. And I'm just like, bro, it's not happening. So, and I see my teammate and fellow playtester Action Will joined in there. Thanks for joining, buddy. And Track says he would have loved to test this one. Yeah, you would have. I'm sure you would have had plenty to say because it's not good, man. There's some cheeks. So CF said he proposed something similar because he's a playtester as well. Um, Similar to Battleheart and Megatron when he teleports and has immunity for a short duration. I mean, that'd have been cool. Whilst I do think that now I do question, I do question the part that she's saying about who comes up with this stuff and thinks it is good. I think they know the abilities in the game. At a minimum, that was the first thing we started talking about when um, when they got in the playtest. The problem is, I think they were looking at this from a lore accuracy standpoint and trying to get him to teleport. But then they was like, well, we got a teleporting bot, and Dale tried to tell them. He's like, why were we making a teleporting bot when we can just make 5-star cup and dead end? you know, and he's right. But now, you know, I think that you really gotta be careful sometimes when it comes with lore accuracy and what's actually usable in the game. And I think when you at the level that we play the game at, that part gets missing a little bit sometimes when they come up with these abilities. And I think that's the piece that they gotta solve. So Tarn says it's neat on paper but useless in practice. I don't use the U word a lot, but I have to kind of agree. Like when you actually try to get in there and start using it, it's just not that great. Blade 19 says plain and simple, not good enough. So Berserk DC says this bot was a chance for innovation, like adjust the targeting system and have them target another bot on the team for benefit. Haven't had one of those in a while. Like and they used the example Astro Train 2. Yeah, I mean, and that did come up at one point. Didn't get anywhere with it, but yeah, I mean that's would have been something different. I was like, and I thought about that, but then I was like, do I really want the strategies around that? But then I remember the old strategies around it, like you said with Astro Training. It was like my first 5-star ever in the game, and so I got to use a lot of him back in the day. Some people can still use him very well, more effectively than I could at this stage. But yeah, could have been cool depending on how the rest of his stats were, for sure. And give him health nano by default and teleport him back if killed quickly. He would have been more on theme as a stealth or a hack dude. Agreed. Yeah, I mean, and most of the buffs, Big Blade were relatively. I mean, the cost one was the biggest buffs were the cost one. They, he started at 7+2. All the rest of the stuff, um, is improvements, but relatively minor improvements. And I see we got Mark 4025 joining us. Thanks for joining and predicting that he's going to be in batch 20. Yeah, CF says this bot's an improvement upon what we had been given, but thus far, but he's still not a viable bot. Agreed. Hey, we got Jimmy Watson with us again. Thanks for joining. Is he good? Now that's what we're talking about. He not good. I'm gonna throw him on the screen for you so you can see. Ooh, where am I? Since you missed the opening, but thanks for joining. Even later on, he's just not good, man. And I was excited. I was really excited because this is a character, in my opinion at least, a pretty iconic character, and I just really wanted him to be great. And that's just not where we at all. So Trax says we have a ton of fire bots. Why do they get so out of shape about having one teleport bot? A lot of bots aren't lore relevant like Ultra Magnus, except he dies sideways. This does teleport in lore. So here's the thing: when you look at they don't get mad about fire bots because fire bots were so far out of the meta for so long that they made a big push for fire bots, just like they made a big push for acid bots. At this one point in time, they was like, well, nobody's ever going to use a damage over time bot ever, ever, ever. And then they started making all the damage over. We had 2 straight metas of making damage over time bots better, and then we started with acid and giving them purpose, and then fire and giving them crazy amounts of AOE and stuff like that. So I suspect that one day that won't be the case. It'll probably be a balance patch sometime that'll just make them not do that, not be top in the game, and they'll work on some other, class. Who knows? It'll probably be these cryo and electrics, but jeez Louise. Waza said, I'm willing to bet if you pick 10 random bots and ask a dev what they do, they generally wouldn't give them all right. I, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm quite there with it yet. I think the biggest thing is not knowing what we need to play competitively. I think they probably know the the bots and the mechanics and stuff of the bots well enough. I think that when you look at this and you try to go say, hey, go take this in the Prime League hard mode, and you need the G1, and G1's going to have enough damage to finally take out a build bot. Um, what should wind up being common sense. I think it's just not. I think they probably had the conversation about some of the other bots that. Well, there's only really that one pair of bots that does the same thing. So Let's see. I see DMQ joined. Thanks for joining. All right. Well, I think that I'm done talking about this bot for a while. But man, it's tough. I was really looking forward to this one, and it really falls flat. So, all right. So, and I'm gonna fast forward because I didn't want to show this first attack, even though I won that one. But I want to talk about a little bit about front-loaded bases real quick. I ain't gonna spend too much time on it, but I just keep seeing people when all the stuff is in the front of the base just struggle. So this is, and I just so happen to have this clip. So I just want to kind of break this down a little bit because, so you can see everything's on the front. So when I get into a front-loaded base, and I didn't actually scout it here, but the first thing I start looking for is the placement of all of the outposts, because eventually those outposts are all going to be popped. Now, the primary strategy I use with the primary screen, or the primary thing that I use is a lot of AoE. So you can see here I've got Scavenger, I've got Swindle, I've got them to use my AoE, right? So watch how this actually plays out live in an actual war. Now it's playing a war against a tier 2 team. And even though you probably saw what team that was by accident, I don't like to try to put this stuff up there to embarrass anybody, but I like to just go up there to try to teach the concepts. So I drop, because I use Rodimus Unicronus, I wind up dropping my whole team. I know a lot of people like to do these onesie twosies, and I start searching around here for any threatening build bots. So I get Rod U going, so I get the extra damage, and then I start looking for threatening build bots. So we got a fire build bot up there at the top, and see, this is what I like about front loaded bases, because like everything's right there within reach. So the first thing I do is take out the shield generator, which make it easy to take out everything else. If I don't have any of the um, if they don't have any of the FFDs around, then you can go up there and start shielding yourself. So in this case, I'm actually using uh, Demolisher, which is overload for you guys on the Decepticon side, or the Autobot side, excuse me. But everything's up front, and when you use that massive area of effect abilities, even after I pop the combiner out, you still got stuff getting destroyed. Now, one of the reasons why I still like God, Neptune, and Ruination is because I can take them up to the top of the screen, and I can try to drop decoys. So anything that's even left here, I can distract, the remaining defenses. And if I didn't have that Nexus Prime core at the top to kind of accelerate, you know, his health draining there, what I could have done is I could have actually pulled all of those bots from the outpost up to the top of the screen. So this is one of those things that I like to do. I love to use a lot of distraction. I don't like, if I can avoid fighting the outpost bot, I will. And that's one of the weaknesses that I'm seeing in front loads. And let me know, did any of you guys struggle with a front loaded basis? Because I know I got some teammates that do, and I know I got some other folks that do. But uh, And so I got a question saying, probably off topic, but who are you putting Rat Bat on to be used effectively? So right now, so I didn't even actually go get him out of the event. But I will say this: when I was testing them and when I was just playing around with them, typically I tried to go find, um, a couple of times I've used them on healers, but I don't like necessarily taking the, like combats like Ozu off of healers. So what I typically try to do is find a support bot that I have that I might not really need anything else on him, and I try to do that. He's one of those ones that I think it depends on. It depends on team build, but he's also not something that I felt like I had to try to force onto my team anymore. So, but I did want to look at, and I'm gonna use. I know a couple of guys. I know Dread's got a front load. My good friend and fellow playtester. Dread 81. So I'm actually gonna do some of this stuff in practice. And so I can tell you now. So looking at this one, right? And I'm gonna explain how I'm gonna process this. So the first thing I always look at is if there are any outposts in the front, then I want to check their range. So when I go scout and I say, okay, well, I'm not gonna pop this outpost right away if I go to either this mortar or this build bot. So I'll probably start from one of the outside edges there, only because I do want to get rid of that Nexus Prime core, because I'm probably going to deploy a combiner here and try to get them to the top of the screen. Like I was saying, that'll allow me to pop some outposts, pop the combiner outposts, and get all of them to start going to the top of the screen after I start hitting this with area of effect. Which is one of the reasons why I know a lot of people is like, oh God, Neptune doesn't do the damage they used to do, Ruination doesn't do the damage they used to do. But one of the reasons I still use them, because they did go buff those holograms, and those holograms will keep these outposts tied up for extended periods of time, so I don't have to deal with them. So for me, right around this first line here is where I want to put Bludgeon, and I'm going to stick all the rest of the bots over to the side of him so that he can soak up the damage. You notice as they walk behind him, he's soaking up the damage, not the rest of that team. Then I'll push Rodimus Unicronus to the outside. I'll get rid of the fire build bot, and I'll double right back down with fire right behind that build bot. I'll use Swindle, who has the longer range, out here to the outside, hopefully taking out that MDS. And I'm going to use, again, Dreadwing to get rid of that shield cluster. I'll also double down on that by putting Swindle's attack up there at the top. Now, if I get into trouble here, I do have the ability here from Demolisher in this case. But this is what I'm looking at. So now if I start to get into trouble, because I do see Twin Twist out, and I don't have my, right now I don't have anything that I can get from Bludgeon. So this might be a good time to go ahead and drop my shield to keep Twin Twist from destroying my team. But I've destroyed most of the base at this point. So now I'm going to get rid of the MDS with Dreadwing. Keep my team from getting lit up. Didn't finish that, so I'm going to, just for insurance, come up there with the White Crimzeek and my Titan ability. Make sure I get that gone. And now I'm starting to pop a bunch of outposts. Now, I don't have to do this in this case, but I'm going to use my combiner so you can see that technique that I was talking about. You know, Computron's already used his ability, and so I'm going to get my combiner to the top of the screen, and I'm just going to let him just kind of camp out there for a little bit. And I'm just going to let him camp. Then I'll probably carry him to the other side. Like right now, I'm just wasting time letting, and I'm basically going to yo-yo these guys away from where my team's going to resurface at. As he gets close to the end, I'm going to go ahead and put my hollows down. You know, rust dust starts coming back, and then, but like, you know, you got a couple of them that are still engaged with the holograms at the top. By then, it's a little bit too late. Most of my guys are going to start attacking HQ. And, you know, of course, Swoop still flying around there. You know, it's the damage is done. So for me, it's just a bunch of area of effect, and then just letting it, you know, protecting yourself just enough. Protecting yourself just enough to get the victory. And I see Soldier had joined the chat. Good friend, fellow content creator as well. Thanks for joining, buddy. Sunstreak Awaza says Computron for the win. Hey, listen, and lately, probably toward the tail part of last year, there's a lot of good combiners. I think they did a good job in making multiple good combiners. Probably actually should have did a video or something about that at some point, because and you know, Computron and Lyle Kaiser, they're up there for sure. It just depends on your tactics. I love to, and until they make those holograms weaker, I'm gonna continue to find ways to exploit. I mean, those outpost bots that are fighting holograms ain't fighting my team, and I love it. As anytime that I see people stuffing all their little BS in the back, all the little resource and stuff. I mean, even on my base here that I got on playtest that I haven't changed in like forever, I go straight to the back of here with my combiner, because he's not destroying everything like he was a year ago. But I really just use him for the holograms. Point blank. Yeah, and it's now everybody on my ass about it. Like Trax is like, why am I taking God Neptune? Now the holograms do just enough to keep me out of danger. I'm telling you. And listen, anybody that know me, anybody that's played with me before knows. Look, my bag of tricks is really, really deep. But when I like something, I'll use it. And I know a lot of people question me, it's like, why am I using God Neptune? But I never really been somebody that's gonna sit up there like during the. I take that back. During God Neptune's heyday, I tried to use them a lot for a lot of damage. Uh, I use them for distraction. All the but like you know but like right now, Computron and Lyle Kaiser are really good, and they're newer. After their buffs, um, you know, Overlord and Omega Supreme are real good. A lot of my teammates use them. They're really good. You know, just saw Chris comment up there with Dino King where he says he's the best. I'm not sure yet. I do want to see when we get the 5-star, but you know, Dino King's got some good use up there. I don't Predator King has got some. I've used him when I was doing Dead and Sack. I used Predator King a lot in Volcanicus for you Autobots, just because of the additional damage. So it really depends on your overall strategy. I feel like with your combiners, I think they did a good job of when they set out to say we want to make more combiners usable and not just one combiner usable. I think they did a good job in that. And I think that depending on your strategy that you're using, uh, for the most part, your 5 star, most of your 5 star combiners now have a purpose. So yeah, Tarn kind of agreed with what I was saying. What God Neptune great for crowd control. Uh, I see the homie Eric Lautenschlager joined the chat. Thanks for joining, buddy. Waza said I'm just simping for you talking about me. I'm just simping for 2024 God Neptune. Nah man, it's just that's a tactic. That's a primary tactic that I use. Like I love Computron and I love I like all the combiners really. No, well, not all of them. I like all the ones that got reworks and got 5 stars in the last year are pretty solid. But I said a lot of stuff with the strategies that I use. I had a lot of people laugh at me when I started using Predaking as well. But trust me, when I find a way to do stuff, it works. But yeah, you know me, was I'm real big on distraction. I'm real big on anything that in support. Like we always joke about, probably at least once every other week or so. I'm real big on support. So for me, that's like a larger support role. Um, as opposed to damage. Because a lot of times now I'm starting to now that I'm actually using Demolisher. I'm using combiners actually less than I once was. So a lot of times when I use a combiner, it's because I just don't want to deal with the outpost at all. But all right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night, uh, and probably right on time because the scepter dog about to start going wild. But yeah, I will see you guys next week, and I will see you on the battlefield. Freezius out.